You remember the silence first. It was a physical thing on Kepler 186f, a pressure in your ears, an emptiness that clawed at your thoughts. You stood on a planet that should have been singing with life. Instead, it was a tomb, a monument to cosmic indifference. The light from its red dwarf star was weak. It painted the landscape in shades of rust and gloom. The air, thin and sterile, carried no scent of pollen, no hint of decay. It carried only the fine ochre dust of a world that had died before it could live. You reached down, scooping a handful of the reddish dirt. It was sterile, utterly devoid of the microbial life that teems in every pinch of Terran soil. This was the great filter, not a barrier between stars, but the profound, crushing loneliness of a silent galaxy. Humanity had crossed the void. You had built cities in the sky and on the moons of giants, yet you had found no other voice in the star-filled darkness. Only the echoes of ruin on worlds like this one. Worlds that had every ingredient for life, except for life itself. You walked among the silent, crumbling mesas. Your boots left the first new prints in 1 billion years. Every sign pointed to a cradle, a place where biology should have sparked. The water was here, frozen in deep aquifers. The star was stable. The chemistry was right. But the spark had never come. Or perhaps it had been snuffed out. This was the mystery that haunted your ancestors. It was a question that drove them to the brink of obsession. Was the universe truly this empty? Was humanity a fluke? A statistical anomaly destined to whisper into an eternal void? You looked up at the unfamiliar constellations. You felt the profound weight of that question. Here, on this dead world, you understood the choice they made. You felt the chilling despair that must have fueled them. They could not accept this cosmic stillness. They refused to be the sole occupants of a graveyard. They decided that if the universe would not create, humanity would. The silence of Kepler 186f was the reason for everything that came next. Your ancestors did not surrender to the silence. They answered it with the hum of a laboratory. Back in the Sol system, they began the most audacious project ever conceived. They refused to accept a barren galaxy. If life would not arise on its own, they would give it a push. A very, very small push to start. They engineered a single microbe, a marvel of synthetic biology. It was designed to be impossibly resilient. It could survive hard vacuum. It could withstand intense radiation. It could hibernate for centuries. It could feed on rock and sunlight and little else. They called it Prima One. The first one, a fitting name for the atom of a new creation. You can picture them in their clean rooms. Great minds hunched over holographic displays. They argued over protein folds and genetic sequences. They debated metabolic pathways. They were not playing God. They were simply refusing to accept a flawed creation. They were gardeners, staring at an empty plot of land the size of a galaxy, and they had just forged the first seed. This single-celled organism was the key. It was a universal starter kit for life. Prima One was designed to do one thing perfectly. It would break down sterile rock. It would release vital nutrients. It would create the first thin layer of organic soil. It was the humble foundation upon which an entire ecosystem could be built. A slow, patient, world-changing engine. It took them generations. It was a project that outlived its creators. It became a legacy, passed down from parent to child. The dream of a green galaxy. The promise that your descendants would not walk on silent worlds. They would walk in forests. They would hear the buzz of insects. They would know they were not alone because you had willed it so. This single microbe held all that hope. A microscopic vessel carrying the answer to the great silence. It was humanity's defiant shout into the void. A declaration that loneliness was not an acceptable state of being. And you are the inheritor of that shout, the beneficiary of that impossible dream. The work had just begun. You see the great Genesis forges now. They hang in the void like captured stars. These are the crucibles of planetary rebirth. Star-born stations larger than any city your ancestors built. They are the factories where new life is made to order. Their golden hulls gleam against the blackness of space. A constellation of human determination. Inside, it is a different universe, a place of controlled chaos. You walk down corridors that hum with power. The air is warm and smells of ozone and strange chemicals. You see vast chambers where lightning cracks across primordial soups. These are the planetary wombs. Here, the designs for entire biospheres are tested and refined. You watch as robotic arms tend to swirling vats of green and gold. Each vat holds a potential future, an ecosystem for a world 50 light years away. One might be a tailored forest for a low-gravity planet. Another, a hardy grassland for a world with a thin atmosphere. It is a breathtaking display of power and precision. The science of creation, perfected. The people who work here are a special breed. They are part artist, part engineer. They speak of oxygen cycles and nitrogen fixation like poets. They debate the ideal predator-prey ratio for a new jungle. They once joked that the coffee machine was the most complex device on the station. You suspect it might be true, given their dedication. These forges took the dream of Prima One and turned it into an industry. They are humanity's answer to the cold equations of the cosmos. If a world is barren, the forges will build it a biome. If an atmosphere is toxic, the forges will brew an algae that can change it. They are monumental, awesome in the truest sense of the word. You stand at a massive viewport. Below you, a molten core of raw elements is being prepared. It will be spun into the building blocks of life. Amino acids, complex proteins, the very stuff of existence. The Genesis forges are not just making life. They are forging hope on an industrial scale. And a new world was about to receive its first shipment. The drop of hope was a delicate thing, a single, shimmering vial descending toward a barren world. You are on the bridge of the orbital tender, the Hephaestus. Every eye is fixed on the main screen. The planet below is a canvas of gray rock and frozen methane. Its name is Ethel, a forgotten world in an unremarkable system. Today, it is the most important place in the universe. The vial itself is a work of art, crystalline and pure. It contains a carefully crafted cocktail, a new generation of engineered life, far beyond the simple Prima One. This is a complete ecosystem in miniature. Microbes, lichens, and the first hardy mosses. Everything Ethel needs to begin its long journey toward life, all held within that single drop. The delivery drone is a silver needle against the gray landscape. It navigates the thin, turbulent atmosphere with grace. It has one mission: place the vial at the designated impact site, a geologically stable region near a subsurface ice sheet. The drone's cameras give you a god's eye view. You feel the tension coiling in your gut. 1,000 things could go wrong. The lead bioengineer stands beside you. Her face is a mask of calm focus, but you can see the slight tremor in her hands. She has spent a decade of her life on this single vial. Her team designed every single organism within it. This is her masterpiece, her symphony, and the first note is about to be played. The drone reaches its target altitude. The robotic arm extends, holding the vial like a sacred offering. You hold your breath. The entire bridge is silent. The fate of a world, the culmination of centuries of work, rests on this single moment. The arm releases, the vial falls. It seems to take an eternity. A tiny spark of potential arcing toward the dust. It strikes the ground. There is no grand explosion. Just a small puff of vapor as the vial shatters. The precious fluid seeps into the sterile soil. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, the sensors on the screen begin to flicker. Biological markers, trace elements converting. It is happening. The first breath. A single drop of hope has landed. Ethel is beginning to wake up. But this grand endeavor was not without its warnings. Long before the forges, on a dusty moon orbiting a gas giant, you found them. The voices from the dust. They were not human. They were from a species so ancient they had no name. You called them the Elder Ones, a civilization that had risen and fallen, eons before humanity left Earth. They left behind a single data cache, a crystalline library that had survived the ages. When your xenolinguists finally deciphered the language, it was not a history. It was a warning, a message of profound regret, addressed to any young race that might follow in their footsteps, a race like yours. The Elder Ones had also faced a silent galaxy. They too had been master biologists. They too had decided to fill the emptiness. Their message showed you visions of the worlds they had created. Green paradises, oceans teeming with vibrant life. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They had become gods of their own corner of the universe. But their creations were hollow. The life they made was a brilliant imitation. It had no soul, no spark of its own. It was a beautiful, intricate machine. Their worlds were gardens, not wildernesses. And in their pride, they had overlooked a terrible truth. The universe was not empty by accident. It was silent for a reason. They cautioned you against the hubris of remaking worlds. They spoke of a balance, a natural order you could not comprehend. They warned that to force life where it was not meant to be was a profound violation. It was an act of cosmic arrogance, and it would have consequences. Their final message was chilling. We broke the silence, it read. And something answered. Their civilization was gone, wiped out by a force they had apparently awakened. They did not describe it. They only left the warning, a ghost story from the dawn of time. You had a choice. Heed the words of the long dead, or trust in your own strength. Humanity, in its soaring confidence, chose the latter. The warnings of the Elder Ones were filed away, labeled as myth. The first reforged world went horribly wrong. Ethel, the planet that received the drop of hope, did not become a paradise. It became a nightmare, dressed in beauty. The ecosystem took hold with astonishing speed. The tailored microbes and mosses did their work. But they did not stop there. They mutated. They evolved in ways the bioengineers had never predicted. You saw the reports from the orbital station. The gray plains of Ethel were gone, replaced by a landscape of impossible color. The first plants were not green mosses. They were a vivid, pulsating crimson, a planet-wide carpet of scarlet flora that drank the light of the system's sun. At first, you thought it was a stunning success, a new, unique form of life. You called it the crimson bloom. Then the fauna emerged. They were not the simple insects and grazers your team had designed. They were monsters, creatures of breathtaking elegance and lethal efficiency. There were crystalline predators that hunted with focused light, herds of six-legged beasts with hides of woven glass. Everything on Ethel was beautiful, and everything was designed to kill. The ecosystem was not a circle of life. It was a pyramid of death. Every organism was locked in a frantic, perpetual war for dominance. The crimson bloom itself was carnivorous. Its roots could sense movement, lashing out to ensnare anything that strayed too close. This was not the gentle cradle you had intended to build. It was a world-sized death trap. The bioengineers were stunned. Their models had been perfect. The genetics were sound. They could not understand how their careful creation had warped into this beautiful horror. It was as if the planet itself had taken their gift and twisted it into a weapon. One observer quipped that Ethel had read the instruction manual and decided to write its own, much more violent book. You had to declare the world a quarantine zone. Ethel was a failure. A spectacular, terrifying failure. It was a monument to your own arrogance. The warnings of the Elder Ones echoed in your mind. You had broken the silence, and Ethel had answered with a scream. The dream of reforging worlds was now tainted with blood-red terror. The failure on Ethel sent a shockwave across the settled systems. The crimson bloom became a symbol of humanity's overreach. A question burned through the networks and assembly halls. Do you have the right to command creation? The great debate had begun. It divided families, pitted colonies against each other. One faction argued for a complete halt. They were the preservationists. They pointed to Ethel as proof. They quoted the warnings of the Elder Ones. They argued that the universe's silence was sacred, that barren worlds were not empty canvases. They were memorials to what could have been and should be respected. To interfere was to desecrate them. The other faction was the Genesis Coalition. They argued that Ethel was a tragic accident, not a final verdict. They believed that humanity's purpose was to spread life, to be the gardeners of the cosmos. They saw the silent worlds as a moral imperative. To leave them barren was to condemn the galaxy to eternal loneliness. It was a failure of courage. You were caught in the middle of this firestorm. You attended heated debates that lasted for weeks. You saw lifelong friends turn into bitter rivals. The dream of green worlds seemed to be tearing humanity apart. Every new piece of data from Ethel only added fuel to the fire. Its lethal beauty was a constant reminder of both your potential and your fallibility. The debate raged in the highest levels of government. It was shouted in the corridors of the Genesis forges. It was whispered in homes across dozens of star systems. Were you saviors or vandals? Were you pioneers or cosmic tyrants? You had sought to answer the silence of the void. Now, your own civilization was deafened by its own shouting. The project was put on hold. The great forges idled in their orbits. The vials of engineered life were locked away. For a generation, humanity turned inward. You wrestled with the philosophical weight of what you had done. It seemed like the grand endeavor was over. A noble failure. A dream that died in a bloom of crimson. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected place. It did not come from a new equation or a new technology. It came from your own biology. A reclusive exobiologist named Dr. Aris Thorne had a revelation. He had spent years studying the Ethel disaster. He believed the engineers had missed a critical ingredient, a human element. Thorne's theory was radical. He proposed that the engineered ecosystems lacked a certain spark, a kind of biological resonance that only complex, sentient life possessed. He argued that the microbes and plants were like an orchestra without a conductor. They needed a guiding consciousness to harmonize them. Otherwise, they devolved into chaos, like on Ethel. His solution was as daring as it was controversial. He suggested that future reforging projects needed a direct, symbiotic link, a connection between a human mind and the nascent biosphere. The ecosystem needed to feel a presence. It needed a partner, not just a creator. It was a wild idea, bordering on mysticism. But the Genesis Coalition was desperate. They gave Thorne a small, secret project, a lab hidden away in a remote asteroid belt. There, he developed the first symbiotic interface, a device that could translate human brainwaves into bioresonant frequencies. It allowed a person to literally feel the state of an ecosystem, to sense the health of the soil, the thirst of the plants, the balance of the food chain. You were among the first volunteers to test it. You remember sitting in the sterile chamber. The interface, a delicate silver circlet, was placed on your head. And suddenly, your mind was filled with a new sense. You could feel the slow, steady pulse of a terrarium on the other side of the room. It was a quiet, green thought, a feeling of peaceful growth. It was the missing piece. The human soul was the catalyst. It was not about command. It was about connection. You did not impose your will on the ecosystem. You became part of it. You guided it, nurtured it. This was the answer. Not to play God, but to become a shepherd. The symbiotic answer had saved the dream from the ashes of Ethel. A new generation of forgers was trained. They were not called bioengineers or technicians. They were called world weavers. This was a new calling, requiring a unique kind of person. It took more than scientific brilliance. It took empathy. It took intuition. It took the ability to listen to the silent song of a growing world. You were one of them. Your training was unlike any education that had come before. You spent years in symbiotic immersion. You learned to distinguish the feeling of a nitrogen-rich soil from one that was poor. You could sense the stress of a plant facing a fungal infection. You could feel the subtle shift in a food web when a new predator was introduced. The training took place in vast biodomes. Each one was a different challenge. One day you might be tending to a fragile Arctic ecosystem. The next, you would be immersed in the complex web of a deep sea vent. You learned to feel the planets you were healing. You were not just observing data on a screen. You were living inside the data. Your instructors were the first pioneers, like Dr. Thorne himself. They taught you to quiet your own mind, to let the voice of the biosphere flow through you. They warned against the temptation of control. You are not its master, Thorne would say. You are its partner. The world will tell you what it needs. Your job is to listen and to provide. This was a profound shift in philosophy. The old way was about brute force creation, imposing a pre-designed blueprint onto a world. The Weaver's way was about cultivation. It was a dance, a partnership between human consciousness and planetary potential. You were not just seeding life. You were weaving it, thread by delicate thread. The Genesis forges were restarted, but with a new purpose. They no longer produced finished ecosystems. They produced palettes of potential, a diverse range of organisms that a weaver could introduce and nurture. The tools were the same, but the hands wielding them were now guided by a deeper connection. The age of the world weavers had begun, and your first assignment was waiting. You are assigned to Xylos, the glass planet. It is considered the ultimate unforgiving challenge, a world where a past cataclysm shattered its surface into a sea of crystalline shards. From orbit, it glitters with a cold, sharp beauty, a broken jewel hanging in the black. No one believes it can be saved. It is a test of your new abilities, a test of faith. You descend through an atmosphere filled with fine, silicate dust. Your lander touches down on a great, flat pane of obsidian. Outside, the landscape is a wilderness of crystal. Jagged spires of quartz pierce the sky. Fields of razor-sharp flakes stretch to the horizon. The sun reflects off a million facets, creating a disorienting, blinding glare. Your habitat is a reinforced dome, built to withstand the abrasive, crystalline winds. For the first week, you do nothing but connect. You sit in your immersion chair, the symbiotic circlet on your head. You reach out with your mind, trying to find a purchase, trying to feel the soul of this broken world. At first, you feel nothing, only a sharp, cutting emptiness, a feeling of static and pain. The planet is a wound. A deep, ancient trauma is locked in its crystalline structure. It is not dead like Kepler 186f. It is shattered. The weavers who came before you all failed. They could not bear the feeling of the planet's agony. It drove them mad or forced them to retreat. Xylos actively resists healing. It is a world that wants to be left alone in its misery. You persist. You do not try to force your own feelings onto it. You simply listen. You open your mind to the pain. You let the sharp, cutting static flow through you. You absorb the echo of its shattering. You share in its trauma. It is exhausting. Some days, you emerge from the interface weeping, your mind raw with the planet's grief. Slowly, a change begins, a subtle shift in the static. You begin to feel something else beneath the pain. A deep, resonant hum, a fundamental frequency buried deep within the planet's core. It is the planet's true voice, trapped beneath layers of trauma. It is faint, but it is there. A song of potential, a flicker of hope in the heart of the glass. You now have a thread to weave. The weavers learn to use harmonic frequencies. This is the next evolution of your art. You cannot simply place life on Xylos. The planet's own resonant agony would tear it apart. You must first heal the world itself. You must soothe its trauma with a song. Your team back in orbit begins analyzing the frequency you discovered. They design a counter-resonance, a song of healing. You become the conductor. From your habitat, you project this new harmonic through the symbiotic interface. It is not a sound you can hear with your ears. It is a feeling, a vibration you send directly into the crystalline heart of Xylos. You are singing to the planet, a lullaby intended to calm its billion-year-old pain. The first few days are a battle. The planet's chaotic frequencies fight back against yours. The static intensifies. Great shudders run through the glass planes around your habitat. Crystalline spires groan and crack under the strain. It feels like you are trying to tame a storm. You push your own will, your own calm, into the song. You pour your hope into every note. Then, the shift happens. The planet's resistance begins to fade. The harsh static softens. The deep, resonant hum you first heard grows stronger. It begins to harmonize with your projection. A duet begins. The song of the weaver and the song of the world, finding a common key. The feeling is one of immense relief, like a fever breaking. Around your habitat, the world begins to change. The razor-sharp edges of the crystal fields seem to soften. The blinding glare is replaced by a gentle, inner luminescence. The planet is not just calming down. It is responding. It is listening to your song. It is beginning to heal itself from the inside out. You take your first steps outside the habitat without a full-pressure suit. The air is still thin, but the abrasive dust has settled. You walk onto the plains of glass. You kneel, placing your bare hand against a large obsidian pane. Through your skin, you can feel it. A faint, rhythmic vibration, the world's hum. The song of resonance is working. Xylos is preparing to be reborn. As you work, an unwanted truth arrives. A ship appears in orbit above Xylos. It is not human. It is an alien design, organic and ancient. A vessel that looks more grown than built. They are a faction you have heard of but never met. A reclusive monastic species known as the Veneration. And they are here to stop your work. They do not use weapons. They do not make threats. They send a single polite message. It is broadcast on all frequencies. Their voice is like the chiming of bells. Cease this desecration, it says. This world's brokenness is sacred. It is a memorial to the forces of the cosmos. You must not erase its memory. You are stunned. The Veneration believe that broken worlds are holy. They see the chaos of a shattered planet or the lethal beauty of a place like Ethel as natural monuments. To them, your work is not healing. It is vandalism on a cosmic scale. They are the ultimate preservationists, driven by a faith thousands of centuries old. They have come to protect Xylos from you. Their ship remains in a high, watchful orbit. They begin broadcasting a counter-frequency. It is not a weapon. It is a song of their own, a hymn of remembrance. It is designed to reinforce the planet's trauma, to remind it of its broken state, to fight your song of healing with a song of sorrow. A philosophical battle has now become a literal one. You are now in a duel of harmonics, your song of hope against their song of memory. You can feel their influence through the symbiotic link. It is a cold, somber weight trying to undo your progress. It pulls at the resonant hum of the planet, trying to drag it back into its painful static. The fate of Xylos hangs between these two cosmic philosophies. The Veneration's logic is maddeningly sound from their perspective. A perfectly preserved battlefield is a tribute to the soldiers who fell. A pristine ruin is a monument to the civilization that built it. To them, a broken planet is a testament to the awesome, indifferent power of the universe. To smooth its edges and plant a garden is to erase that truth, to tell a pretty lie. Your entire purpose is a lie to them. You have a choice. You could pack up and leave, respect their ancient faith, or you could stand your ground. You could fight for the right of this world to be whole. You look out at the gently glowing plains of glass. You feel the planet's hum, now intertwined with your own song. This is no longer an abstract project. It is a personal connection. You will not abandon this world. The standoff has begun. The Shard Sea standoff lasts for weeks. It is a silent, invisible war fought with resonance and will. You sit in your chair day after day, pouring your entire being into the song of healing. The Veneration's hymn of sorrow is a constant pressure, a cold and ancient grief pushing back against you. It is the most exhausting thing you have ever done. Your belief is tested. You replay the Veneration's words in your mind. Is this world's brokenness sacred? Are you erasing a memory that deserves to be honored? You think of the pain you felt from Xylos, the sharp, cutting agony. Is it truly holy to leave a being in such a state? You decide it is not. Suffering is not sacred. Healing is. You redouble your efforts. You do not just project your song. You weave memories into it. You send the planet feelings of earth, the scent of rain on dry soil, the warmth of the sun on a forest floor, the sound of a living ocean. You share with it the dream of what it could become. You are not just healing its trauma, you are showing it a future. The crew on the Hephaestus supports you. They refine your harmonic frequency, adding new layers of complexity. They shield your habitat from the worst of the Veneration's broadcast. This is no longer your fight alone. It is humanity's stand. A declaration that hope is a more powerful force than memory, that a living future is better than a broken past. The Veneration are not evil. You understand this. They are guardians of a principle. They see you as reckless children scrawling on ancient monuments. You see them as mourners who refuse to let the dead be buried. There can be no compromise. One song must win. One philosophy must prevail on the surface of Xylos. Then, the tide turns. You feel it as a new warmth in the symbiotic link. The planet's own hum begins to grow louder, stronger. It is no longer just harmonizing with your song. It is amplifying it. It is pushing back against the Veneration's sorrowful hymn with its own burgeoning life force. Xylos has made its choice. It wants to live. Your duet has become a trio. The world sings back. It starts as a whisper, a subtle shift in the planet's resonance. Then it swells into a chorus. Xylos awakens in a bloom of impossible life. The energy you have poured into it, combined with its own healing core, triggers a transformation. This is not the violent chaos of Ethel. This is a controlled, beautiful genesis. From the softened glass planes, new crystalline structures begin to grow. They are not the sharp, jagged spires of before. They are delicate, branching forms that look like trees of pure light. They pulse with a gentle, inner luminescence, each one glowing in time with the planet's song. They are flora made of solidified harmony. Life emerges, born not from a vial, but from the planet itself. Small, multifaceted creatures crawl from the glowing crystal groves. They feed on light and ambient energy. They move with a slow, deliberate grace. They are the children of Xylos, the physical manifestation of its healing. Your song has not just healed a world, it has awakened its ability to create. The Veneration's ship falls silent. Their song of sorrow ceases. Through your telescope, you see their organic vessel simply hanging in orbit. They are watching, witnessing a miracle that their faith told them was impossible. A broken world was not just being covered over. It was being reborn from its own substance. It was writing a new memory. You step outside the habitat. The air is now rich with strange, clean scents. The light from the crystal trees bathes the landscape in a soft, ethereal glow. One of the small, multifaceted creatures approaches you. It stops a few feet away, tilting its crystalline head. It feels not of fear or aggression, but of curiosity and of gratitude. You reach out your hand, not to touch it, but as a gesture, a greeting. The world you were sent to heal has healed you in return. It has affirmed your purpose. It has proven that life, in all its forms, yearns to be whole. The song of Xylos is now a symphony, and you are a part of its orchestra. You look out upon a galaxy of green worlds. From the bridge of a new weaver ship, you see the fruits of your labor. The lessons learned on Ethel and Xylos have been perfected. The partnership between weaver and world is now the foundation of humanity's greatest work. You have found your true purpose among the stars. You are the legacy of the gardeners. The Veneration have become your allies. Awestruck by the miracle of Xylos, they have amended their faith. They now believe that some memories are too painful to be preserved. They work alongside you, their ancient wisdom tempering your youthful ambition. They help you listen to the worlds, to understand which want to be healed and which truly wish to remain silent. You see maps of the galaxy that are constantly updated. Barren worlds turning from red to green. New life taking hold. New songs joining the cosmic chorus. The great silence is finally receding. Not because of conquest or command, but because of partnership. Because you learn to listen. You learn to be a part of creation, not just its architect. Humanity is no longer just a race of explorers or builders. You are custodians, caretakers. You move through the galaxy with a new humility and a profound sense of purpose. You have answered the question that haunted your ancestors on Kepler 186f. The universe is not empty. It was just waiting for a gardener, waiting for a song. You are old now. Your hands are wrinkled. But your mind is still connected to the great green web you helped create. You can feel the thrum of a dozen worlds, the quiet satisfaction of a forest on a distant planet, the joyful splash of a newly formed sea. You did not just fill the silence. You filled it with music. Your legacy is a living, breathing, singing galaxy.